Kia ora, welcome to CIO Leadership Live. My name is Kathy O'Sullivan, the editor for CIO New Zealand, and I'll be your host for today as we welcome Stephen Ponsford, Chief Technology Officer turned CEO at Curious. Welcome, Stephen. Congratulations on the new role.
Thank you, and kia ora, Kathy. Thanks for having me on.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your role and what your team at Curious does?
Yes, so as you mentioned, now the CEO at Curious. Curious is a specialist data and analytics partner in New Zealand, looking at how we can help companies find and then extract data-driven innovation. We work across sort of government and enterprise brands in New Zealand.
So obviously AI is something that's becoming more and more of a technology that different businesses and government organizations are looking at. And the government recently updated its Digital Technologies Industry Transformation Plan. Can you tell us your views on the AI component of that plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did some, so we've seen the draft reports come out, and last year we did some preliminary work with the government around the AI survey in New Zealand. This was a report that Curious co-commissioned with the Ministry for Business and Employment, MB, looking at AI adoption. And what we're starting to see is a lot of the themes coming through from that report now turning up in the ITP, specifically around AI. The major theme that we're noticing, which is coming through all of these, is the talent shortage in New Zealand and the need to really build pathways and diversity in there.
So what's Curious, and I guess the wider organization looking at when it comes to that talent shortage, and particularly in such a specialized area as AI, what kind of initiatives are you taking to get more talent, more people into the IT industry?
Yeah, so we're actively participating in the intern and the pathway program. So Summer of Tech is a great one to give a nod to. It's a great program. It's been running many years, and we look to bring through our interns from that program. Secondly, another great program called Elevating Aotearoa's Future is one that's targeting zero experience in diverse groups across New Zealand. So these are groups that otherwise had low representation in the industry. And again, what government's doing is they're partnering with organisations like Curious, and through a 12-week boot camp, we're offering a very short on-ramp into full-time employment in our industry. So it's pretty exciting, and the benefit for us is not only do we get great talent for the future, we also benefit from the cultural impact of having these really exciting, generally younger people come into the organisation. So yeah, it's a great win-win for us all.
So obviously getting more talent into the business is always good, but you also have to keep your current staff happy and engaged. So now that you're in the big CEO role, how do you think you're going to create that internal culture to inspire growth and make sure that your team is achieving their personal and their professional goals?
Yeah, so a couple of opportunities we're taking. One is really connecting our people with the work and the value with our customers. So if you look at the work we're doing with the Department of Conservation and Kiwi Protection, the work with Zespri around exporting kiwi fruit, it's great to really make sure that our staff can connect with the value that they're getting, our customers are getting. So that's one part of it. The second part is we've really focused on being a purpose and values-driven organisation. There's a real reason Curious exists, and there's probably some things that won't be true if Curious doesn't exist. Some of the talent pathway work, for example, we're the only people with the scale to really be able to afford to bring a lot of that talent through onto our full-time employment. But additionally, when we look at our purpose around transforming New Zealand, how can we make New Zealand get ahead? And especially with the last couple of years, it's one of these great goals that as an organisation we can rally around and say, how does data-driven innovation help support New Zealand not only getting back on its feet, but thriving in a post-COVID, in an incredibly digitised world that we're coming out of now.
And of course, Curious is part of, the wider Spark organization. So how do you and your team go about engaging with the wider organization around the role that data analytics and AI are playing in achieving business objectives through Spark itself?
Yeah, so we're really lucky. So we have the Spark Business Group, which Curious is a part of, And the Spark Business Group is a collection of subsidiaries and business units which essentially evolve around all of the emerging technology transformation areas. So think cloud, think data analytics, IoT, 5G. And it's this wonderful melting pot of businesses we've got where not only can Qrious work with organizations on data-driven innovation, but we can then bring that back into the Spark Business Group as a whole and say, how could we kind of join forces and bring all of that kind of trifecta, if not more, of emerging technologies to bear. The second part is that as we discover benefits in customer land through data-driven innovation, we can introduce those concepts to Spark and see what they're doing in those spaces. And likewise, there's scenarios where we're taking innovations that Spark has discovered in its own enterprise business, and we're taking them to our customers. So we're really trying to create that quite symbiotic kind of relationship within the group and then through our customer base.
So as you'll know from your role as Chief Technology Officer prior to taking on the CEO role, there's an awful lot of talk about transformation that it's a given within organizations, and in reality, it's actually not that easy. So how has that approach taken shape in your own career?
Just in terms of general transformation, I think the theme I've learned, and I think we forget how much transformation we've come through. So most of us started with seeing personal computers turn up in the workplace at scale. Then we saw the internet turn up, then mobile apps, and so on and so forth. And what I sort of look at is, the general theme was the successful technology approaches have always been the one that started with how can we transform the business. So it's not simply a question of here's an exciting piece of technology, which I know, that's not where CIOs and CTOs naturally go, but that can be a risk where we go, here's some exciting artificial intelligence. How do I use it? Instead of really understanding that business challenges, there's always a set of challenges that businesses have. And if we just have this perennial focus on seeing emerging technology as a new set of answers to potentially age-old problems, I think that's really important. So that's sort of my first, and I call that kind of level one. So how can technology waves create business transformation? But really what we're saying is how can we improve the existing business with technology? Where I think we see the most transformation in industry is where businesses say, how could I recreate my business around this technology? And so it's a combination of modern business approaches with modern technology. And I think that's quite a difference than a traditional business trying to enhance ourselves with technology.
So what have you found are some of the kind of common roadblocks to avoid along the way when looking at transformation?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, number one for me is technology-led. When we see technology-led investments, what often happens is you see burnt fingers. And the worst thing that can happen is a customer invests too heavily early on in a new technology, burns their fingers, and then misses a major business transformation down the line. So I think it's about patience, it's about experimentation, and being ready to commit when the time's right. So that's probably my big one. The second one is, how can technology leaders connect with business leaders more closely on these topics? So, sitting down, one thing we saw with the AI report is that AI isn't in the strategic conversation yet at a board or an executive level. Now, if that's not happening at that level, then everyone else in the business is really experimenting with very little behind them in terms of kind of an understanding about the business value. So I would sort of encourage that, at a board level and an executive level, really put these emerging technologies. We all get to use them in our personal lives well before we're using them in our business lives generally. So I just encourage more conversations. I think, how can the board have conversations? What's the value of AI? Does it matter this year? Does it matter next year? And what are our competitors doing? That's a great question that I think people need to ask more of, especially when it comes to overseas competitors.
So what would your advice be then for a CIO who is considering AI for some part of the business and is trying to advocate for funding for such a project?
It's often, if I look at my role now, it's especially daunting on me that you have a number of priorities as the business executive. And so really what you've got to decide is how important is a topic to introduce to the executive of a company? And secondly, what's the urgency? So it might be simply to introduce a topic and say, I think over the coming years, this is going to become more and more important to the business. Or it might be, I'm seeing our competitors use this technology. in increasingly powerful ways to gain competitive advantage. And, I think those are the sorts of conversations that are very healthy, but also be kind. We have all these priorities coming at us these days, and especially in the last couple of years. And so I always encourage executives to kind of, let's be kind to ourselves as well. We are going at a frenetic pace, digitizing our businesses, evolving how we engage with our staff, etc. So it's a bit of a find the priority, find the balance.
So you've made the jump. You've made that jump from CTO to CEO. But a lot of other CTOs and CIOs, they're wielding a lot of strategic influence in their organizations, but very few actually go on to leading their businesses. So what do you think is hindering CIOs and CTOs from taking that next step, from becoming CEO?
Yeah, so I think it's that holistic thinking. This isn't about technology. It's about how technology can transform business. And if you can demonstrate the focus on the business and on improving the business rather than the technology, I think you start to put yourself out in front of maybe just being seen as the technology leader. Secondly, though, I actually think my story is going to become very common in the coming months and years. Technology has proven for a decade now to be the most powerful transformative force in every industry. So having somebody in the top chair who has a very strong grounding in technology is going to become increasingly important. I think boards will start to select more and more technology-backed CEOs. I also know that the Institute of Directors recently highlighted that having people with technology experience at a board level is becoming increasingly important as well. So I think we're going to see a lot more pull into that executive space for people like myself who have come up from engineering backgrounds.
So then what would your advice be to someone who is in a senior technology role, who does want that top job? What kind of steps do you think they should be taking to put themselves in that position?
Yeah, extend your thinking into the broader business. What's going on in the business, connect with other business leaders, things like financials, customer engagement, all of the things that you will need to have a really good handle of it in the business orientated and top jobs like CEO. Just invest that time in getting to learn the business. There's some really good courses out there. The Chambers of Commerce and the likes generally have really good business focused courses. Alongside, as I called out before, the Institute of Directors has a wonderful set of executive courses. So that's something that I've personally pursued and really gave me a much more holistic way of thinking about business.
So now that you're in that CEO role, what's important to you in the months ahead? What are the main things you're going to get stuck into?
Yeah, so look, we've got some immediate priorities. I think mass absenteeism is something that is really challenging all executives right now. What do we do about it? Is there anything we can do about it? How do we look after our people and our customers? So the next few months, I think we're all sort of seeing to ride out this wave and wondering, is it going to be over in a few weeks or is it a few months? With that done, though, we're really looking ahead now and we're saying, okay, can we breathe a sigh of relief and start thinking about the future in hopefully a non-COVID centric world? That means for us, we're really readdressing our strategic plans. I've called out talent. That's probably one of our number one strategic priorities. How do we reinforce and build much stronger talent pipelines? That is one area that's not going to get better for at least 12 months, I would say. So alongside that, just keep working with our customers, partners, and keep doing the great work. The other side is we've really learned to up the empathy level with our people over the last sort of 12 months or 2 years. And what I mean by that is we're understanding a lot more about the balance between home life and work life. And we talk about hybrid work. I think it's hybrid life. These are people who are trying to get on with their lives and they live very busy and full lives. And one thing that I've noticed is the disruption has helped us understand the home environments are very different and in some cases challenging for our people. So we're really going to try and get that balance right. How do we create, a really engaging, collaborative culture that wants to come into a co-located environment like an office? Likewise, how do we really enable them to work remotely?
Great. Thank you, Stephen Ponsford, for your time today.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it.